Okay, so hi. I don't know if any of you listen to the podcast Smartless, but what I do like is they always address listener, as in there's only one person listening, and so I kind of feel like that's cool. And I'm going to say the same thing. Hi to the one person who is going to definitely watch this, and if I'm lucky and other people decide to tune in, then hello to you too. Okay, so I had this idea that I would like make these videos and just talk about different things that interest me, and there's no real agenda or calendar of like topics that I've come up with. But I did want to start with like a book that I read. It is Julia Gillard's "Not Now, Not Ever," and it basically says 10 years on from the misogyny speech. And so I didn't know whether all of you know the context of what happened when she gave this speech. But basically, she was the Prime Minister of Australia. And I was actually on a fellowship in Australia when a lot of this was taking place. So I sort of had this very deep resonance when I went back to Australia for work. For Bumble, and I saw this book in the bookshop, and I don't think it's like absolutely new, so this is not necessarily a review of a book that's just been released like last week. It's 2022, but anyway, to the point. So she was the Prime Minister of Australia, and basically, like, it became really acceptable in Parliament for all these men, including Tony Abbott, like the leader of opposition, to like make really sexist remarks about her, and they would like call her all these things. And I think once in Parliament, someone even said that your father would be very ashamed of you, and just like really personal. And she was sort of taking it as the Prime Minister and kind of going along. And then one day she goes to Parliament and she decides to like she notes down a couple of points, like that's her essay. She talks about how like she wanted to say something back, and she noted down a couple of points on a piece of paper, but she hadn't actually prepared the speech, and it sort of just came out of her. And it was this like moment where she just like really called out like the sexist, misogynist kind of behavior that she's been dealing with, and she really called them on it. And she just like made this very passionate speech that a lot of people would often tell a female politician to not show emotion, right? Politics aside, like I feel like even with Hillary Clinton, like for example, people didn't want her to like show emotion, and I think a lot of women politicians in India also like they're very stoic, and they don't they don't necessarily like show a lot of emotion in that sense. So it just became this thing that she did. And what she's done with this book, which I think is like so amazing, is that she hasn't written a book which like captures the the continuing misogyny in society, or also like the strides that we made in terms of like tackling misogyny at an institutional level. But she's actually given space to like 10 different Australian women to reflect upon the speech, where they were when they heard it, and like what the implications have been on their lives. And so I would say read it, because it's really like 10 essays, but it is like it's like a news commentator who says that like I couldn't believe she was making this speech, but just hearing those words made me think, oh my God, like why hasn't this been articulated before? And you've got other sort of politicians and other people in the arts, media, public figures, non-profits. I mean, different types of women who like basically like reflect upon like how they heard the speech the first time. And then they're like these really interesting chapters about reporting on gender and the misogyny speech, and how the reportage after the speech was made went, how it traveled around the world. So I think that's like really interesting. People started making memes, and in fact, like in the age of TikTok, this speech came back to the fore, and I think that's why she's had like more people find out about it, because it's actually had a resurgence on social media. And then there are some people who write essays, and they kind of look at the history and the culture, and so they kind of like looking at misogyny and intersectionality, so a lot of different essays. But what's really interesting is that she has this essay by three young women, of which one is Chanel Contos, who in my time at Bumble I got to know about her and her work. And she talks a lot about consent, and she talks to young people about like what it means to like really be able to ask for consent in like intimate relationships, and then be able to like give consent. And obviously, as an app that deals a lot in personal relationships, like a lot of what she was saying was really interesting to us. And I think all the apps and companies were kind of engaging with her. But in that chapter, they also talk about the fact that they learned about the term misogyny, right? Like through that speech, because they didn't really fully understand it. So I had like two different kinds of takeaways. So I think the first one was like, what a cool format. It's like you did this amazing thing, and then you just want to like track like what kind of repercussions or what was that ripple effect in other people's lives, and you give them space to write an essay. So it was like a watershed speech, right? And it was like this amazing speech in parliament. I remember hearing it like when it came out, or just around the time that it came out. And I've always tried to somewhere incorporate like women's issues into whatever work I'm doing. So I wonder if this played a part, and I didn't really think about it till I saw this book. I think and the second is, I think like in Australia, because they've had such a focused look at like women's issues, they've actually like instituted like these national plans to end like violence against women, and they kind of have like these action items, the framework that exists, and like the kind of things that they need to invest in. Part of what I saw over there was it was so organized, like at a societal level, but also there was a lot of like very good attention being given to like how tech plays a part in it. That in my last assignment, with Bumble, like we tried to bring some of that to India with the partnership with the think tank over here. But yeah, I mean, my point being that like if you're gonna write a book, you can go that fictional way, or you can spend a lot of time like discussing a subject. But I think like there's something so powerful about her just saying, I made this speech. It was like a big moment in my life, and it just changed the game for me completely. I couldn't believe that I said aloud all these things that I was thinking of saying. But that she's asked all these women to like share space with her and just talk about like how they developed as a result of like listening to this speech, and like how their lives have changed and how their work has changed. And so yeah, I think I would recommend it really highly. Again, not now, not ever. And apologies, this is my first video, so I haven't like prepared any deeper analysis. Just the fact that I put my phone on is like really good right now. I've been putting it off, but a lot of friends that I've been meeting are like, why don't you just do it? Like, don't think about it, just do it. So you know what, I'm gonna just do it. I've just done it. I'm just gonna make sure that my internet connection can upload this video. And yeah, if you happen to stay through with me, drop me a note and tell me if you liked it. And yeah, see you soon.